Hello and welcome. Good evening. You're watching NewsTrack here on India Today. I'm Akshita, Nandagopal, and we're counting down to the announcement expected from America on the trade deal with India. It's a limited trade deal, the announcement that's expected today, as there are some sticking points which is expected to be addressed in the next few days. What can you expect from this limited trade deal? How has India really dealt with Trump and these tariffs? We're going to be breaking it down for you over the next half hour. Here are the headlines first. Government of India rejects X's press censorship charge, says never asked X to block Reuters handles. IT Ministry says X was asked to immediately unblock accounts. Air India plane crash probe team submits preliminary report to Government. Parliamentary committee seeks timeline for complete probe report on Air India plane crash. Bihar Chief Minister's big woman outreach before polls promises 35% quota in government jobs for women from the state. Massive stir in Mumbai. MNS and Uddhav Sena workers raised protests and slogans against injustice to Marathi people, slamming police and state government. Several protesters detained. Tragic accident in Tamil Nadu's Kadalur. 3 students killed as school bus and train collide. DMK alleges railway gatekeeper didn't understand Tamil, cites language barrier as reason for the tragedy. Let's begin with all the details that we're picking up here on India Today on the trade deal between India and America. Been in the work for the last many months now. We're hearing that the announcement could come anytime now on exactly what the trade deal looks like. But here's what we're picking up from our sources. There's going to be a limited trade deal for now, essentially because there are a few sectors on which there's been no middle ground that India and America have been able to reach. So you're going to see a limited trade deal. India reportedly is held very firm on its key demands, not giving in and making it clear that these are issues we're not willing to bargain on. America has shown willingness to engage, but the limited deal will cover some select sectors where there's a broader understanding between India and America. The broader trade pact, perhaps including sectors like dairy and agriculture, which have been the biggest bones of contention, that you can expect later. But we're hearing that the announcement could happen any time now and that there will be an announcement made by America. This will be, of course, the second day because yesterday you already had Trump releasing a whole lot of what's referred to as the tariff letters now for countries like Japan and several others. Trump already has announced a 25% tariff. Remains to be seen what exactly the trade deal with India will look like. Let's bring in our reporters on this broadcast. I've got Pranay Upadhyay, editor of India Today Global, Karishma Asudani, who's joining us. She's from Business Today TV. Pranay, I'm going to come across to you first on when we're expecting the formal announcement on this limited trade deal.
There are indications that this limited trade deal can be announced anytime soon. The indications are there that can be announced today even. We have been getting that this interim trade deal will exclude the sticky points, the points pertaining to the agriculture market access, the issues related to our dairy products, and certain other areas where India has that concern. And this trade negotiation, it's a complex process. Akshita, it's been on since quite some time, and in fact, President Donald Trump has also acknowledged the fact that India is one of the few countries which has started these trade negotiation with the United States with the with the Trump administration at the very early stage. You will recall, Akshita, that on 12th of February 2025, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump met in Oval Office, both the leaders have announced the initiation of this bilateral trade agreement negotiations. And in fact, they have set a target, a very ambitious target of $500 billion bilateral trade. And this bilateral trade agreement is to reach that target, to accomplish that target. So this clearly shows that there is an intention, there is an object, but obviously trade is a very complex negotiation process. Every tariff line,
In the
every
fact that
product,
we've
you
been
have
seeing
to.
negotiations going on for months together between India and America. Let me bring in Karishma Sudani also to kind of decode what we could be talking about when we say limited trade deal. Karishma, what are you picking up from your sources? What are the sectors that will be a part of the deal for now? We understand, of course, as Pranay was also telling us, dairy, agriculture, not expected that there will be any sort of deal or agreement on those sectors for now.
Akshita, there is absolute clarity on one aspect that we are not a part of the letters. In fact, government is confident of the fact that the negotiations that they've had in Washington, which extended beyond 2 days, have made it to a limited trade deal pact. Now, the reason I call this as limited is because India has taken a tough stance, a breaking stance on the fact that they are not going to do away with the sectors that's important for their domestic and local interests. Pranay already mentioned about how important agriculture, dairy, soy, rice or wheat is to us. At the same time, US has been pushing that they should also get access and bring their products across these sectors, especially that related to maize and soy, which is big in India. Officials have also told me that had the negotiations not taken a form of consensus, India was ready to take the 26% tariff, but was not willing to budge on letting go of these sectors. So that's big on our part, because the fact that we've had a first mover advantage, yet we have not given in any desperation, speaks volumes about how important was for the trade ministry officials to be able to finalize these negotiations. Now the deal be announced today, tomorrow, or even if it's going to extend beyond July 9, it may not be very bothersome, because clearly we may not be a part of the August 1 list anymore.
Okay, interesting. So there is a scope for, in fact, an extended timeline to take talks forward, in which case then remains to be seen whether we're still going to be seeing a limited trade deal or if there's going to be any breakthrough when, you see talks moving forward. But what's very clear is that both India and America have been approaching this with a very open mind to ensure that both countries benefit. And that's something we'll talk about also as we move forward in this broadcast of how this kind of a trade deal, look, it's not just about takeaways and positive ones for India, but also very much for America. They've been pushing hard, so have we. But at the same time, it looks like there have been some agreements that have been signed right now. At this point, I can confirm for you that US President Trump is currently also addressing a news conference where he is speaking a whole lot about really the tariffs, highlighting again the deadline that Karishma referred to of August 1st. Not necessarily for India, but at the same time, he seems to be shooting off one warning after another to other countries as well. And here comes the big question, Pranay, of the BRICS factor. And the fact that Trump, even now, just shortly before, has said that BRICS is going to get a 10% charge pretty soon. So, what does that mean for a country like India too?
Indeed, and you rightly pointed out, Akshita, this has come at a time when India has just assumed the presidency of BRICS. So this will be a challenge for India to balance the diplomacy. But on the other side, if you see India and President Donald Trump's attitude towards India, he has always indicated that India is negotiating with the United States, and soon India and United States will have a trade negotiation. But as far as the BRICS is concerned, certainly President Donald Trump has been critical about the BRICS. And if you see his previous statements as well, he always warned about the de-dollarization or any possibility of replacing dollar as the global currency. So US has every reason to feel concerned about these things. But whether he'll impose additional 10% tariff or not, because everyone is expecting only or wanting to have a consistency in a statement. Even the tariff policies, if you see, the bigger concern is the volatility in the market, the volatility in his policies, the volatility in his tariff announcements. So what we are expecting, or globally every country is expecting, that there should be a consistency, and we do not know what he is saying, what he is threatening, or what he is going to implement it, because we have heard around 150% of tariff announcement regarding China. But now there is absolutely kind of a silence about the China, and the US administration has already announced that they have cracked a deal with China as far as the trade is concerned.
Let's just look at really how negotiations have played out between America and India. Here's a quick look at the timeline before I take this across to Geeta Mohan as well. In February, you had the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, in which India also went ahead and reduced tariffs. Remember that Trump, in the run-up to this, has been making many statements referring to India as the tariff king, saying that India's tariffs are unfair. And then a few months later, this is right when America started then slapping tariffs on every country. India too, US imposed a 10% baseline tariff on all imports, and India faced a 26% tariff. On April 9, the formal announcement was made of reciprocal tariffs taking effect. And there were so many questions really of what that means for every single country. As far as India went, which like I said, Trump referred to as the tariff king, India faced a 26% tariff. But then right after that, on the very same day, President Trump announced a 90-day pause on the tariff, essentially giving way for 3 months of non-stop dialogue with every country, including India as well. So then what you saw is right after about 7 days from that particular announcement, India considered removing import tax on US ethane and on LPG. After that, April 21st, US Vice President J.D. Vance visited India. A number of things on the agenda, but clearly the focus was also on what will emerge as far as a trade deal goes between India and America. Each of these visits has been crucial in reaching this stage where we're talking about a limited trade deal. You had also a formal trade discussion kicking off on April 23rd. It was very clear that there's a 90-day roadmap, keeping in mind the fact that you had Donald Trump's deadline of 1st August. Now, Trump has been addressing a news conference where he's spoken also about his tariff plan, about the fact that he's already gone ahead and announced a slew of tariffs just yesterday. Listen in to his latest statement.
We will have taken in about $100 billion in tariff income thus far this year, and that's with the tariff, the major tariff not having started till the second quarter. So we could expect that that could be well over $300 billion by the end of the year.
The big money will start coming in on August 1st. I think it was made clear today by the letters that were sent out yesterday and today. The big money will start coming in on August 1st. I think it was made clear today by the letters that were sent out yesterday and today.
Okay, let me bring in Geeta Mohan also on this broadcast. Geeta, we're talking about a limited trade deal for now. There's some, questions about whether we're going to see that announcement come in the next few moments. It could be pushed by another 24 hours. But Karishma was also highlighting for us, Geeta, how the deadline of August 1st, which Trump has been reiterating repeatedly, spoke about it today as well, doesn't really count for India.
Well, it doesn't count for India because the conversations between India and the United States of America are underway. Although when the finance secretary was in DC negotiating terms and conditions with America, he did not come back successful. But now we're looking at conversations that have moved ahead, and there could very well be a limited trade deal. What does that mean? What does that entail is the big question over here. The fact, Akshita, is that India is very clear on a few things, that agro products will have to be left out, that dairy is something that India is not going to touch when it comes to the United States of America, and that that America will have to honor those requirements of India as well when they're looking at concessions in tariffs for what they want to bring in to India. A limited trade deal, waiting for the fine print, a very important one. Donald Trump's press briefing is underway as we speak. He did mention the policies on tariffs for the 14 countries. He's also going to announce letters are going to go out for the European Union as well. So again, a very significant development there, but a threat to India like we just played out when it comes to, or the BRICS forum, when
Correct.
it comes to the de-dollarization scare that America has. He has called it an anti-America plank. One will have to wait and see how that BRICS nations are going to deal with, because that's an additional 10. Serious concerns there, but awaiting what this limited trade deal would entail, what it would comprise of when it comes to India and the United States of America.
And let's just also put the focus on why this trade deal is beneficial, not just for India, but very much for America too. We'll break that down for you, focusing first on the benefits for India from this kind of a trade deal with America. There will be exemption from US tariffs on key exports. So India as a market will benefit from that. Boost to textiles, leather, gem. These are some of the exports that we in fact rely on America for. There's also long-term US LNG supply at stable prices. We saw developments on this from April as well. US investments in tech, pharma and electronics hopefully will open up opportunities for more investment from America to be pumped into India. As far as America goes, there are a number of aspects they're looking into, but the benefits from an ideal trade deal is that there will be lower Indian tariffs on agriculture, auto, medical goods. There is, of course, that question mark on agri because it's one of those sticking points between India and America. It will also mean more access for US digital service companies. We know India is a huge market for them, so they will also benefit from this trade deal. Increased exports of LNG, which I referred to earlier, of defense and tech. And we've seen, of course, a whole lot of defense deals between India and America that could get pushed forward as well. Strengthened supply chains away from China. This is perhaps most important for America because they've been constantly trying to ensure that they isolate China and ensure China is not as powerful. And so for that, they're hugely reliant on India, on ensuring that India-US ties continue to grow in the path that it has been. Let's talk about the mutual benefits for both countries, why this is a win-win situation if there's a proper trade deal. A target to raise trade to $500 billion obviously benefits both India and America. You'll see then streamlined trade norms as well as customs procedures. There's also deeper strategic alignment in the Indo-Pacific. And so you will have US then ensuring that they have a trusted partner in India. Economic resilience, because you're seeing essentially trade ties diversifying across various sectors with very clear, streamlined decisions on exactly what those trade ties look like. And let me take this across to Karishma again. Karishma, what would be an ideal trade deal for India? There's been a lot of negotiations, of course, that have been taking place. But what's a trade deal that we could look at and say this is perfect for India?
Well, an ideal trade deal for India would be clearly a greater market access in the US with protection of its sensitive sectors, especially the one that we are talking about. Maybe a zero or low tariffs on sectors that have already been doing well, take it textiles or leather or gems and jewelry, which are labor-intensive sectors for India. And India has put its best foot forward in conveying this to the US. Priority access for pharma and genetic drugs is also something that could be included. But knowing the fact that how tariffs on pharma have come along, this could also be slightly on the sensitive note. So let's keep steel, auto and pharma aside, and of course agri aside. And besides this, all the sectors that are included will have a larger benefit for India taking in its relationship with the US forward. And Akshita, it's going to be two-way. It is not just us having an opportunity to increase our exports and trying to finally utilize or bank upon the China plus one strategy, which we've been sitting for 5 years now. And since we've had a first mover advantage in this whole thing, it is very apt to say that keeping all the other South Asian countries aside, which were a part of China plus 5, we could have an added advantage here. But besides this, the US also will have a greater access when it comes to the Indian market, and also to strengthen the whole bilateral trade concept between two countries, especially when US relationship with China is always nerve-wracking.
Yeah. And I want to just play out for our viewers what exactly Trump had said yesterday. That's when, of course, you saw a lot of these tariff letters, as it's being called, being released by Trump. Several countries on whom America slapped tariffs, those announcements were made. There was a reference also at that point to what exactly is the trade deal looking like with India. So listen into that. And we also want to put out what India has had to say. This is from a month ago when there was still, of course, active dialogue between India and America to kind of stitch this trade deal together. Listen into what Piyush Goyal had also said. So both those reactions.
We're close to making a deal with India. Others we met with, and we don't think we're going to be able to make a deal, so we just send them a letter. If you want to play ball, you have to. This is what you have to pay. So as far as I'm concerned, we're done. We're sending out letters to various countries, telling them how much tariffs they have to pay. Some will maybe adjust a little bit, depending if they have a cause. We're not going to be unfair about it.
Our focus has been on FTAs with all the advanced countries. We entered into an FTA with UAE, Australia, UK, the 4 EFTA countries. We're in active dialogue with the United States of America for a bilateral trade agreement, which the two leaders, President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, announced in February 2025.
The messaging from India and America has been very clear. Both are looking at a fair trade deal. You heard that message from Donald Trump, rather positive for India at least, where he says that, look, there are countries with whom we've been unable to stitch a trade deal, so we just turn them away. But as far as India goes, we're close to ensuring that there is a trade deal that's signed, which is good news because it means that essentially the talks, the dialogue that we've been putting up has held good. At the same time, sources tell us that India has been very, very firm on its demands. There's no question of backing off just because of Trump constantly threatening and attempting to bully many countries into some sort of a trade pact. So that's the messaging essentially that India has also resorted to. When will we know about this limited trade deal? Well, it's expected that there will be some clarity in the next few hours. It could also get pushed by 24 hours because, as you heard from our correspondents, there is also a sense that because India doesn't fall within that deadline bracket of August 1st, you could see more talks happening between India and America before there is a formal release on exactly what the trade deal looks like. But you can count on us here on India Today to get you all of the updates as we are constantly keeping track of the latest that comes in on this trade deal. Sources telling us that a limited trade deal has been agreed upon for now.